My bad. Welcome to Pirate Utopia Part 16. And
Ooh.
Sweet 16.
yeah, 16 is cool. So
Okay.
I looked up the number 16 in numerology today, and I was like, what is it? And it happens, it'd be seven, so you combine one and six. The number
Hmm.
seven symbolizes humanity's deep inner need to find depth, meaning, and spiritual connection. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, word. Because when JuJu and I talked about this episode, I mean, there's many facets to JuJu. We could talk about her art. We could talk about her travel. We could talk about, I don't know,
Designs,
design.
the way I live.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But so the other night, you're like, but I want to talk about like spirituality. And I was like, that's rad. I could always use a refresher. And like, I think it'd be kind of cool if we kept I mean, we tried to keep the conversation towards that for episode 16. It just ironic that it lined up with the numerology thing too.
I mean, is it irony or is it just
Right.
this amazing life we live? Synchronistic is the
Yeah.
term I like to use. Yeah, man. That's fun. Thanks for looking that up. And I have a fun game to play with you, gents, if you'd be interested. Pick a number between 1, 2, or 3. And I have some cards to pull for that. Not tarot cards, just affirmation cards. So,
Just pick a number one, two, or three.
yeah.
Okay.
I'll do 3.
Okay.
I'm two.
How about okay. All right, so I'm gonna round it out with the 1 then. All right. So for 3, it says radiate your golden glory. Be honest with yourself. So these are some cards I wrote for my own personal use, and I like to play with friends and like, get their intuition into it. But card 3 said radiate your golden glory and be honest with yourself. So where does your light need to kind of have another outlet or to shine brighter or just to warm up a space, in a way that you may not think or consider that it's impactful in those ways, but it's needed and it's valued and it's useful. So radiate that light, your golden glory.
Does that apply to you, Aaron? Because with your new place and everything.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I think I'm sort of feeling it in terms of just it's been pretty chaotic, and so I think it's just about maintaining a level of positivity while everything is kind of crazy and I don't know chaotic and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah, because that will help you to remain centered on what's important, especially, when you're honest with yourself with what's important. Chaos is
Exactly.
chaos, it's part of things, but the order is like within us, how we can arrange things. Yeah. All right, number 2 says come home to love. Call in your spiritual team to assist. Come home to love. Call in your spiritual team to assist. Yeah, I feel like that says it all. I'm going to show the little image I drew on here too.
Yeah, yeah.
You see it?
Oh.
So that's the home. It's not necessarily a place beyond yourself. It's that feeling of belonging, familiarity, acceptance, appreciation, just like, yeah, it's your original home because the body was built for us to like engage when you were just this little spark in your mama's belly. And even before you got there, it's just like that home in our culture is people tend to kind of focus outward on like what's your physical space around, who are your homies, who makes you feel good, and blah blah blah. But it's like all of those feelings that you can ever get from anything external comes from within. And it's like if you're home in yourself, you're with yourself, you're for yourself, by yourself, no matter who you're around, you'll always be at home. And yeah, call in your spirit team to assist. Spirit's always good for a good time. And we'll be there with you when it's not a good time. And yeah, it's like the subtle things like looking up the date for this is like that synchronicity. Like, okay, yeah, today's a good day for this. Yeah, let's roll with that. Because I know our plans changed a bit before we got to be here live
Right,
now
and I was
living.
gonna say, like, you actually would have been on episode 15 if we had,
Ah,
so like since we switched and then we had Julian first,
mm-hmm.
it was just like it wasn't planned, and it was just like, of course, this is like the spiritual refresh episode, you know?
Uh-huh. And here we are.
Yeah.
It's all happening.
Uh-huh.
All right. So, one, let's see what it says. Okay. There is more than enough. You can have it all. Travel to come home different. Hmm. Yeah. Ooh. All right. I'm going to have to read myself on that one. There's more than enough. You can have it all. Ah. So I went on vacation just a couple days ago, and I got back in Wednesday night after driving through a snowstorm.
Mm.
That was only literally a part of our journey. So we leave Seaside. It's chill, cold. We get there, it's like snow, and our little Fiat was stuck for a good amount of time until the snowplow dude came through, and we were just sitting there like, I'm thinking I got to go to work. My friend's like, I want to be on vacation. Like, and we're both like, we're here. All right. So I was just thinking about like the cost of the experience, because everything costs, even if you're paying cash or not. But it's just like that time there. I didn't have to be home at a specific time that day, but I needed to be there that day. And it was just kind of like in the back of my mind. And I'm like, dang, how much of my relaxation time is it burning up now? Because I'm thinking, oh, will I make it? So I said, you know what? We don't need to think about that. We're here.
Mm.
We've done all we can do.
Mm.
And whatever else needs to happen is going to happen around us.
Mm.
And I kind of let myself just relax into that space of like, yeah, this vehicle we have is steady. It's sure. We just need the right amount of traction. We'll get where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of made a little mantra of that for myself to keep that mind that's like, ooh, wanting to kind of contract into those small spaces. And, but what if this shitty thing happens? And what if this happens? I'm like, dude, we're here. This is all that's happening. All right. And then we ended up stopping off to get like gas and stuff, and they had like a free shelf in the gas station. So we ended up getting this book on tape and like several other things. So we were actually pretty well stocked. I had all my snacks. I was just like,
Uh-huh.
so what do I have right now? Like what adds value to this moment? So I was like, yeah, I've got my snacks, I've got a book, I got my best girl. She's awesome. We're just hanging out. She's probably freaking. I can be supportive. I'm going to be here. I'm going to do that. And that for me was just like realizing how much I had within me in that moment, even if I couldn't get what I wanted to get, which was to get going. And
Mm-hmm.
like, no, I think maybe we were there for like an hour max two before we got to like start moving again. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm so grateful for like people that show up and do the things, Who knows if that's their dream job, but fuck, they're helping us live our dream to get going right now. And I was like, thank you, dudes, like for plowing the streets. And then like I was able to stay in my space of like, all right, I'm peaceful, calm, relaxed, I'm centered. I had to get out and push at one point, but I was like, I could do this. And then we had other helpful people around us. So it's just like realizing that there's more than enough. And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be a thing. There's so much generosity. There's so much kindness. There's so many able hands that are willing to show up. And sometimes you got to ask, other times you don't have to ask. And it always works out. And it did. And I feel like that was a part of me traveling and coming home different because I was able to just like appreciate landing in my space that feels like my space. It has all my things in it, has my cat here, has my roomie here. We're just hanging out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I went so that I could come back and see it like, oh, yeah, this is my space. I love it. Thank God it's here. Like, so yeah, man, there's more than enough. You can have it all and travel to come home different. I love these things. My friend was like, yeah, what do you think about, I don't know, writing affirmation cards or something for your business cards? Because you're like into that, right? Which, yeah, I am. And I was just like, All
So
right.
do you write
So
these as your business cards? Like you write affirmations individually on all of them, or?
no, this is an experiment.
Oh, okay.
So, right, my business cards, I have a standard card with a bit of my artwork and then my name and then contact info. It's pretty beige, but I
Yeah.
do have space on there that I can write those. It's your basic,
Yeah.
but I was just
Face
like,
bitch.
Beige.
I mean, just a little beige and basic, but she gets paid though. Okay. Sometimes you got to keep it like streamlined for the streamlined people. And then other times, like, dude, check out this affirmation card.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, it
Right.
was just like, I was like, oh, that's a good idea. But then I made them like these little pocket strips, says the name, my company, and like, it's available there, but it doesn't have the info like where do you go, emails, social media things like that. That's on my beige card. But I'm gonna show
Hand,
you.
like the handwritten. Every once in a while, I'll get a handwritten card from artists. That's really cool, and I just think it is like a
Yeah,
cool option.
yeah. And I have space on my beige cards to do that because there's like a big space in back that's black.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I could write little things on there. That would be really cool. But yeah, it was this experiment. She inspired me, and like I've been using these cards as like my own like touchstone sometimes because it's nice to have tactile things to focus in on when the intangibles kind of, oh, where am I today? How do I feel? What am I thinking? What's my spirit needing in that sense? Or what does my soul need? Because for me, I believe spirit is completely contained and completely full. It's like, hmm, what words would I put to this? Words don't really do so well in explaining, but I'll point to what I think spirit is. Um, yeah, it's like the ocean in a sense, or the river. It can interact with whatever comes across its path or in its path, and that thing will be changed for interacting with it, but yet the ocean remains the same in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also being changed at like a level that's not as perceptible as it is. You can measure it, with our science and things of that nature. We can maybe take a one drop here and say, oh, it's from this part of the ocean or it's from this place because of these trace minerals and yada yada yada. But yet it's still that same water. You freeze it, it will change shape. It can accommodate you. You put it on heat, you can cook with it. It's the same water. So like for me, spirit is that which is just endlessly versatile, incredibly useful, immense, and somewhat like awe-inspiring because it's just you can't fully wrap your mind around it.
Mm.
But you can forever probe, and there's always more. There's always more. You can get deeper. You could go wider. You could stay on the shallow edge, but you'll still be nourished. You know what I mean? It's just like it's the seeker in that sense that can really
Mm-hmm.
dive into spirit to go find out what your soul needs.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, I just moved west, which
Mm-hmm.
um, and coming from the East Coast with a whole different vibe, whole different mentality. And I realized, like, all right, dude, yeah, we're gonna have to slow down because, yeah, Brooklyn pace is very different than Oregon pace, and I dig
Oh yeah.
it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, all right, I need to slow the fuck down, dude. I didn't even realize I was like so sped up. And I was like, oh, so I ended up flying back to New York for a weekend. And I was like, dang, why is everything so fast and loud? And I realized how much just being physically in a different space, in a different vibe, just like switched something for me. And what was kind of I'm going to use this word, what I was numb to in a way became so loud and so present. And I was able to really enjoy that contrast because it like showed me like, oh, yeah, you can do this. You can adapt. Humans are incredible at adaptation, but that doesn't mean you have to. You
Hmm.
know, it's like taking in that note and stock of like, oh, being in here, being in New York City costs me focus, attention, energy that I'm burning because I'm moving at this pace. A little bit, yeah, I still had a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. I have fun wherever I am, but it's just like the fun there was like, oh, where are we going? What are we doing? Go, 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 go. Whereas here it's just like, I'm gonna sit, I'm gonna read, I'm gonna do my Sudoku puzzle, and I'm gonna get up and do some yoga, and I'm gonna take a walk just to walk. I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna
Mm.
go hike. Like I realized here that people go hike for fun. Like that's the point. I'm gonna go walk somewhere that's more woods than people, or like it's like, yeah, okay. I'm into that.
So I want to stop you
In New York.
on a point for a second. When you're talking about spirit or the the force or the like infinite
Source.
love, or it being kind
Hmm.
of like the ocean, if you will,
Mm.
like a lot of people would say, to pray to it, or give gratitude to something like that. Do you find that that's true? Because I mean, I don't know if I find myself praying to it as much, but I do find myself typically happier if I'm saying either even affirmations or giving
Hmm.
some sort of attitude of gratitude to this force, if you will.
Hmm.
Do you find
Yeah.
it yourself, or do you think it just doesn't matter? And it's
Well, that's, please continue.
like praying to it, or like being gratitude is almost like yeah, you can try to be that, but that's just like a human. They just want you to act like a kind, that's the programming part, where it's like the spirit doesn't care. It's going to come through and
Mm.
flow through no matter whenever, whoever it
Hmm.
wants, more than us. But do you,
Hmm.
other people, I think they seem to have an idea that you can like call it in or channel it at certain moments, or in order to like produce art or music or other things. So
Hmm.
I was just wondering if you had a relationship with like praying to it, or like giving thanks to it and seeing results, or not really having to do that at all.
Mm. Ah, that's good. It's a good one. Hmm. I want to say that my relationship with what I consider spirit has evolved. And I've come from a place of the Western perspective of separation. Like, there's God, here's me. I have to, God, spirit, source, whatever. And it keeps going up and away. Here I am, human, taught to pray on your knees, kind of like bow down, worship, which also those words and the practice of prayer, worship, devotion have also evolved for me. So coming from a place of being in Catholic school, not
Okay.
exactly agreeing with those teachings because it seemed disempowering, and it seemed that, yeah, that was the main thing. It was just disempowering, and it didn't fit my sense of self and the way that I was envisioning the world. So I don't bow down to anything or anyone, because in those same teachings that come from Catholic Christian, Judeo-Christian teachings, even Jesus, the we discussed this briefly in his story. He's like, I'm the son. If you're the son of something, like your DNA is the same. There's no real separation. But the idea of saying I am God is a little different in the West than it is in the East, because in Hinduism, everything is God. It's all God, period. So
Mhm.
that's where the Western sense of I'm over here, here's God, and the Eastern sense is you can't turn around and not see God, especially if you look in the mirror. You can't. Everything is God. So what are you gonna do with that God energy? And the sense of where, and particularly in the West, people are like, I'm channeling, and this sense of who they think they are will step aside in order to let something else through. I can see how that may work in order for the mind to sit and be quiet, not so investigative, not so curious, not thinking, but allowing the flow, which is another term that I would use for it, where it's that source fullness, that feeling of just complete ecstasy is another word, or bliss, or joy, or just space. It doesn't even need to have like a positive or negative connotation, where it's just spaciousness, where you can just be. You're receiving, observing, no judgments, no thoughts per se, and that's some would call that samadhi in a way. Again, these are just terms for people that like to think about. The
Right.
words are only pointing here. So my relationship with prayer came from the on your knees in Catholic Church to dancing, moving my body to the point where I stop thinking and I am just experiencing aliveness through this being, this physical form that is able to take stimuli and take sensation and translate that into an experience that I can then think about, which I can also take the time to forget about thinking and just being with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another way I pray, which is also giving praise for having a healthy body without thinking, oh, I'm so grateful for my healthy body, which I also do, you know, and that opens up the space for spirit, source, that which cannot be defined, to find space to just be.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're sitting there trying, let's see, trying to think of the names to call source to get source to work for you. Because, some people are like, oh, if I pray to this God, then this God's going to do that. And then that's going to happen. And yeah, stuff can happen. The universe is an incredible place. And so many things happen that cannot be explained. And yet they happen, they're experienced. But also, if you think of the source, that's that great river, that great ocean. There's life, all sorts of life in it. If we look at the ocean that we know, all sorts of life in it, all sorts of life around it. Some of these lives will never interact. That doesn't mean they don't have space to exist and be nourished and be cared for and still be maybe become something that is nourishing, to another. So there's this sense of just fullness with that, where when I art, when I sing, when I'm dancing, I've come to a place where I can be comfortable knowing that I don't know. And that I feel is where knowing that there's no separation between me and God's source, sense of myself, as long as I let that go,
Hmm.
because I'm the one that can put it up or take it down. And that's where people are like, oh, I'm channeling, I'm calling it in. It's really a way I feel to say, I'm going to get out of my own way. I'm going to let life live me.
Ah, I like that way of putting it. Like, I'm gonna get out of my own way.
Yeah. Because
Cause
what are we?
yeah.
Just life forms, all
Hmm.
of us. A cat doesn't need to be told how to be a cat. We're one of the few ones that kind of try to figure it out by asking about it when no one really knows.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
that's
you
the
could even
best part.
say, yeah, you could say that that's like, that is the form of a human. That is our nature, is to constantly question things and stuff. But I don't know. It also seems like the more that you try to fight it against that sort of thing, the more it holds on. So it's like, if you like, I notice if I get distracted or something, like you're trying to focus on something and then thoughts are popping in, distractions.
Mhm.
If you're trying to shut the distractions down, like, oh, don't think about that, don't think about that, don't think about that, it's like the more you create more distraction, the more you make yourself distracted. It's like the
Mhm.
secret is actually to just be like, interesting, okay, keep moving on, like distraction, just let the distraction be there, and then it ends up not holding you, it just is a thing. And I
Mhm.
think you start to notice that when you do, like, lots of meditation or any kind of focus based work, where
Mhm.
yeah, it's just relax and allow it to just kind of pass through. I like that. Yeah, I like
Mhm.
your term flow. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Because if you look at the sky too, to like switch that metaphor, source is space. It's not the stars, it's not the clouds, it's not the bodies moving through. It's the static space
Hmm.
there. Endless, boundless, it can go on forever, whatever that means. But it's like there. And everything is happening within it. So the
Yeah.
thoughts, like, and a lot of the Buddhist practices I've done, because I am heavily meditated. because I need to be, because I
Heavily.
have, oh yeah. I know myself in that sense of I have a very beautiful active mind that can be quite focused on details and also can expand to the point where I'm just like, wow. And that's all I can think, but that's because I've practiced. I
Yeah.
showed up, I sat down, I got still. Then when that needed to move, I started getting up and moving and still took my stillness, my sense of peace and connection with me, no matter what I'm doing. So it's like being able to have a contemplative practice, something that gets you in tune with your body, because the bodies don't think like the minds do. You're saying, oh, here's this thing I'm trying to focus. Here's a distraction. Here's a distraction. Okay. Did you think about, like, did you eat? What was the size of your breakfast? How
Yeah.
well nourished did you feel? Not just that, it's like your body is going to be doing things naturally.
Mm.
And sometimes we're so up in our heads that we're just eating on the fly, or even breakfast. What's that? I don't need that. I'm not hungry. It's things like this when breakfast kind of sets up your potential for the rest of the day as far as what your body will need and how it will be able to function beyond just your mind catching up.
Mhm.
Because we in our culture are so focused on a mental scape that sometimes we're forgetting how highly influenced it is by the physical state and not just the other way around. Because you were talking about gratitude earlier, Jesse, about having a practice of that. And it was so beneficial for me, incredibly, because I was coming from a place of ingratitude, because I was taught to be critical and diminutive in other things. And like, oh, I used to watch so much reality TV.
Mm.
Right, which it just sits you
Yeah.
on the couch and says, "Here's your throne, your highness. Now judge the peasants," and see how terrible, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Sit on your high horse and enjoy this moment of superiority,
Mm.
which is it really, you know?
Yeah.
And then going into like realizing that my mind is my own and I get to feed it, because it eats. Not just my body needs food, my mind needs food. And I'm not looking for things that are I guess essentially like candy or just sweets, or it's like, oh, it tastes good. You're kind of like, oh, this is a treat, but then you have no actual sustenance. It's not anything that you can go back and chew over because there's more meatiness to it, or
Mhm.
there's more juice to it. And now I realize, like, whenever I frequent the YouTubes, which I do, um, I'm seeking a different sort of engagement or entertainment. If my entertainment is not engaging, then it's not entertaining. If it's something I'm using as like, oh, I don't want to do this paper, I'm just gonna go watch somebody be stupid. I realize that's what I'm feeding is my own sense of stupidity through distraction in order to keep feeding me not showing up in my life. So I kind of like took my perspective back and said, okay, I'm going to find 5 things I'm grateful for today. Yeah, it
Mm.
might be a difficult day, but you know what? I'm alive. Yay, one. Woo, high five. We're here doing the thing. What's next? I can breathe easy. I don't need assistance doing that. I don't need a machine. I don't need to like only focus on that. But if I do focus on my breath, I realize how nuanced that action is, how deep that goes, how that is flooding my system with so much in the form of information and potential that my body is translating it while I can think about it. It doesn't need me to think, breathe. I can be grateful for the intelligence of my body that walks, that talks, that sings, that dances, that freaking digests food, like all of these things.
Mhm.
And none of that has anything to do with my situation or circumstance,
Yeah.
which is always changing,
Mhm.
and the same thing with our health, that can always change. And in this time where people are so much more focused on being healthy, on having a strength of immunity, because we were as a nation quite challenged with that, and many people had to pay dearly, while others had got a nice wake up call. Like, yeah, health is wealth, dude. If you're not healthy, if that's not a focus of yours, like, what do you like? The life, this life thing that we're having can't be lived to its potential. So,
I think a lot of people don't realize what they have until they, unfortunately they don't realize what they have until it's gone, you know, or they get sick or they lose a leg or something, and it's like, well, it was cool to have two legs until I only had one. But
hmm
you never really
hmm
think about it, you know, like it until it really happens to you, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you're sitting on your ass at a freaking 5 day meditation retreat, you start thinking about things. You
Yeah.
start thinking about things you usually don't. And that's the beauty of that practice of meditation.
Hmm.
People think you need to be able to sit in full lotus and have no thoughts. That's not it. It's a practice of being able to live with yourself and to realize that your thoughts are not who you are.
And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you brought yourself sit down and be quiet for 20, 30 minutes without a phone or anything in front of you, you know, I think
hmm
that's beautiful. I mean, that's powerful too. It takes a lot of discipline to do that.
hmm To
Well,
create space for the space to flow through you. Because how else? That's why people say, "Oh, I need to get connected with God," because they're so distracted or connected with other things.
Yeah.
When it's like, if you have this space, you realize there's only God, there's only source, there's nothing else. It's just how is it operating in you, and
Yeah.
that leaves space for you to accept whatever comes up. You know, however
yeah.
it shows up.
You know, a lot of this is resonating because I've been reading this book called Sacred Economics by this
Mm.
guy, Charles Eisenstein. Have you heard of that?
No, I would love to read that though.
Oh,
Sounds interesting.
it's really, really
Like,
like mind blowing. But so he starts out because he kind of discusses a brief history of like money and kind of his the way that his conclusions based on his own research was that early societies were primarily like gift based, and so he
mm,
starts going off and thinking about how like our natural state like is gratitude, because for instance, like no matter how bad your childhood may be, the fact that you've made it to be an adult means that you were dependent on other people to get you here. So the fact that you've
mm,
survived this long is due to other people, that and is like being grateful everything about it. Like roads, we didn't build any of the roads, you know, like we like cars, food, all of this stuff just shows up, air, like, and none of it was our responsibility, like none of it, like we didn't make any of it. And so
mhm,
it's like our natural state is gratitude. And so
mhm.
learning how to kind of channel that, and or not channel it, but just like to act,
Embody it.
embody it, that's the word. Yeah.
Mm,
But also further, like because you keep bringing up this this thing about like separation, and he talks about that too, and I think it's so good because he says that like, you know, starting out at the book, a lot of people in spiritual circles sort of have a really difficult relationship with money and
mm,
artists and stuff, myself included. And he's like, kind of the premise of the book is to find a way to make money sacred. And I think the reason why is like a lot of people will say we need to get rid of capitalism, we need to get rid of money, we need to get rid of this, that,
mm,
whatever. But the thing is that that's all based on this separation mindset, which is itself like what everyone else does. Like Christianity, you see it a lot of organized religions. It's like when we get rid of
mm,
the infidel, when we get rid of the sinners, when we get rid of
mm,
the
Hmm.
works of Satan or whatever, finally we will
mm,
live in paradise. But it's like that, it never comes. And it's based on this notion, because down to the fundamental core of our society, everything is separate. Your mind is separate
mm,
from your body. Humans are separate from nature. You know, the
mm,
earth, you know, all these things. God is separate from us.
mm,
And I think like what you're saying is so powerful because of that. It's like really realizing there is no separation. Anything that could be bad could also be good. It's like, you know, I was thinking, Jesse, like you were, you know, you don't realize the value things might have until they're gone. In a way, that's like a reason to be grateful when something is taken from you. It's like, oh, thank you for showing me this aspect that I was totally blind to. You
mhm,
know, like I just lived my life without this, and now, and it's like from that you can now dig into it and understand other people. You know, that's something that I feel like I learn, especially as I get older and I feel more different kinds of pain. Like I feel like I've been
mhm,
fortunate not to have a lot of pain, but when other like as different painful things happen to me, like I was just in a car accident, and it's like, oh, now I can identify with what other people go through there. Like there's always something to be grateful for. And I find it really inspiring that, like, yeah, the things that you're saying about that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I wish you a speedy recovery, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's difficult sometimes to have those moments of gratitude in a situation where you want to do anything but, because
Yeah.
complaining feels nice, but all you're doing is adding fuel to the fire of a problem. And that's where the focus is. So yeah, being able to like say, oh man, I'm so glad that I got fired, or I'm so glad that I just happened to not have a job, so the right job could come to me and I had space to receive it, you know. And it sounds to me like you got like a sense of empathy, a deeper sense of empathy for others that maybe in the past were complaining about all their aches and pains. It's not to say you have more room now for people to just come complain about aches and pains, but you just have a different sense of like understanding for how strong they are to be able to keep moving forward with the pain, even if they got to talk about it sometimes, but they're moving forward. And yeah, it's really cool to have gratitude for things that don't seem so great. Yeah, that's like the yin and yang thing. It's like, you know, everything has a little bit of the other within it. But for me, I like, which I have a tattoo of it, I like to look at the circle because that's the space. That's the space that holds it all. But yet it's on the same arm. So all of this is also in here, but you don't necessarily see it because it's colored in to have that contrast. So I remember one time I said to my brother, I was like, how many sides does a coin have?
2.
Okay, Jesse, what do you say, Aaron?
I want to. I'm trying to anticipate. I'm like, does it have one side? Because this or 4? I don't even know. Yeah, it's like.
You're like, this is a trick. What is it?
Where'd she go with this?
Well, for me, I consider the coin to have 3 sides.
Ooh.
The top, the head, where you have the images and the tail, right? Both of them graven images. If you took the images off, what's the difference between those sides? Well, you can still flip the coin. The third side is the lines in, like with our currency, or the depth or the density of the coin.
Okay.
You can also stand it on its side there. But that's the part that doesn't have any separation. That's the part that connects both the head and the tail so that there is a coin, because that itself is the actual coin. From, you know, folding the metal. I don't know what the process is these days, but like bending that metal so it creates that density to then possibly be engraved on either side. And if you're looking at, oh, there's only 2 sides to it, some people, separation mentality, if they say that, you know, you're flipping the coin constantly trying to land it on the right side.
Right.
But you're missing the coin itself because the coin is all sides. It's everything. And that's like going back again to like that source, creator, God. It's that third side of the coin. It's the part that has the depth to it. You can't always see within it, but it's there. It's what gives this thing weight, gives it value at all. Same thing with money. It's a part of the whole. It's one of the best resources for freaking alchemy, period. And when I say alchemy, I'm saying the process of creating and transmuting things to help them change form to actually improve the quality of living. So what else in our society translates to anything? Almost anything.
Well,
I don't see any other tool in our society.
Yeah.
It's a great tool. It's a great opportunity. It's a great asset. It's a thing that can translate and bend and shape into so many other things. But our relationship with it as people is not just our thoughts on it as we are now. A lot was ingrained within us when we were still just in our theta stage from 0 to 6. Our brains, our children, they're basically dreamy and just taking in information because that's how they're able to start programming themselves to live human lives. It's
Yeah.
by watching, learning, observing. Eventually, they start to mimic. And eventually, they start to, don't get me wrong, they have personalities, but you got to learn the language and lay of the land to kind of like
Mhm.
see what comes up. And a lot of those thoughts around like what wealth is, what abundance is, what money is and can do, come from a lot of adults that are well meaning and well intended to support us in living our lives. I can't say for all, but most. And it's not always beneficial
Mm.
because even that same mindset that, your parents may have had or their parents can be something that's deep within the blood that came from a time when there was like starvation, when there was great need,
Hmm.
or there were many that didn't have what they needed, but there were a few that had too much and they weren't responsible. So that may have been just passed along. And this is the beauty of meditation. I remember a teacher once said meditation is how to change your mind.
Hmm.
It's how to change your mind.
Mhm.
Because if you sit down and you're just batting away thoughts, you can look calm and serene, but you're in your mind like like fighting in the corner, you know? And then it's like to translate that serenity to the mind where you can just sit and like, that's the work. That's
Mhm.
a benefit of doing the work, of showing up and listening to the things or knowing when to say, okay, all right, not now, you know?
Mhm.
So,
I like how you're
yeah.
thinking about it like towards money because I feel like for a lot of my I would say like yeah, most of my 20s, maybe the entirety of my 20s, I operated from a pretty like scarcity mindset. Even
Mhm,
though I went to some yoga classes, did some meditation, had heard we're all one, was like wanted to believe it, and was like
yeah.
sometimes we're all one, and that's how it feels to me, but then other times it feels like we're separate. And I think
Hmm.
it wasn't until like recently that I was like, wait a minute, if we're all one all the time, even your finances are one. Even that's more another extension of you. And
Hmm.
um, to talk to like also bring in this thing about the question of gratitude, is it necessary or whatever? It's almost like, at least was what is coming from both of you, is like it's almost like why not be grateful? Like you don't have to even be grateful. That's how great
Hmm.
spirit is. It'll touch you either
Hmm.
way. But you
Hmm.
might as well because it's your natural state, and like it makes you reminds you that you're one.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
It
I
feels
feel like
good.
And
this
it feels good.
putting this on your finances was like really really a turning point for me personally on like
Hmm.
starting to gain my much more independence. I mean, I'm not a millionaire now, but I'm still like I'm good. I'm stoked. I do well for myself, and I feel like that has to
Yeah.
do with like me being in check and in line with the oneness, even as an extension to my finances.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I feel that. It's, yeah, you can't pretend to feel it.
Hmm.
When you know it though, everything shifts. Because I needed to go deep into my mindset and reset. I had to go wash my brain.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had to go wash it because I was like, money is not the root of all evil. Because if the root of evil takes place, it is still in source, which means it has a use, it has a purpose, it has a reason for being. Just like the root of love is not to be without money.
Mhm.
Like no one's asking about the root of that. But yeah, people like a scapegoat sometimes.
Hmm.
And if an individual feels incapable, unprepared, and has been so, whether it's systematically or personal, coming from your family that tells you, because I've seen people that have access to a lot of money be completely poor in spirit and soul, have no gratitude for it except having the burden of having it and looking at others as if what are you here for? What do you want to get from me?
Mhm.
As opposed to some people that I've seen have smiles and gratitude the and the ability to offer
Hmm.
from their bit that they have, which to them is in this moment. That's all they know they have, and that's it. Afterwards, they'll see what they can get. But they can come from a place of graciousness and
Mm.
generosity. And that's not something to say that's how it is, because there are a lot of people who are in the middle that want more, and some people that are like, no, I'm good with what I've got.
Mm.
And then there are others that are like, no, I need more in order to feel good about what I've got. So I got to go work harder. I've got to go make more money. I've got to go hustle, hustle, hustle.
Mm.
When there's a sense of, especially when you're connected to the sense of abundance, that is oneness. Because we're all individuals. Because if you pick up ocean water, they come out in drops. They're
Yeah.
individuals, but they're going back to the same.
Yeah.
It's not like saying, "Oh, I am this drop and I am incredible and look at how I sparkle." And no, it's just like, okay, and then they're back to that wholeness.
Ocean.
So the abundance is there for all. Do you believe you're worthy? Do you believe that you know better for other people? Because there are people like, oh, this guy's got billions of dollars. He needs to do this and that and this and that and this and that. Okay. Do you know what his life is about, how it's set up? Do you know other things that aren't so talked about in the media? Do you know the ways that this individual is able to direct change and influence things because of the amount of resources they have available?
Mm.
You know, or are you wanting the king to send you your penance so that you can eat and be taken care of, because you don't want to actually get up, change yourself, change your state of mind, change the way you do things and approach things, take responsibility for how your life is lived, how you want to be live. Because trust me, I like a fabulous life, honey. All right. So I know that. I'm not going to go tell other people to do that for me. I'm not going to go wait to marry some rich guy. It's like, no, what do I have? What are my resources that I am abundant with
Mm.
as an individual, as that single drop of ocean water that's got all of the ocean in it, but yet it's able to be in this moment itself? What do I have? What was I blessed with? What am I full of?
Mm.
And not just what people told me, because it's good. It's really good to have people in your corner that can hold up a mirror and say, okay, girl, you're fabulous. Or, girl, you need to do something else. It's nice to have that. But
Right.
at the end of the day, you're the only one that knows what's really real for you. You know, because you have, how many people have fame and success and are not happy? How many people have complete anonymity and are just dying to be seen but won't show up? Yeah, it's about knowing that we are all abundant.
Yeah.
Mm.
I,
And
I
it's
I
knowing where your limits are too with your mind.
I
You got
think
to
that
go
that
in.
is like the center, like, so like further down the book is about the abundance, because he talks about how like we live in this world where we're constantly bombarded with this like narrative that everything is scarce. There's not enough food to go around. There's not enough this, not enough that. And in reality, there's so much food. Like the richer countries just we throw away like up to half of our food. We could give all of that food to other people, you know. It's just, but like, so he's essentially saying like our monetary system is built on interest, which is the idea that like if I loan you money, I mean, obviously we all know what interest is, but like I loan you money, you have to somehow pay me back with more. So
Hmm.
all debt has more, like there is more debt than money. That is just how our system works. There has to
Because
be
of the
more debt
interest.
than money, which constantly forces us to compete with each other because there's a scarcity there. If I don't worry about how much money I have, then I can't pay back my debt to my, my car or my house or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not in my interest to just help you for free, because I gotta make money or whatever. I gotta do things. Or if we both do similar types of jobs, well, now I'm in competition with you. I need to make more money than you to pay back my debts, and you
Mm.
need to make more money than me. And then that just filters into everything that we do. But the problem is
Sounds
money
like a
isn't
flaw.
real. Like, what was that?
I said that sounds like a flaw of operation,
Exactly.
honestly, because that doesn't sound like our human nature, which is to collaborate and connect and share and
And give, like,
yeah.
and it's all made up. And I won't say like that it's all bad. I'm sure there's some good things about it, but like the problem is that we think that that is the natural state, that scarcity and interest based and competition and all of that
Mm.
is the way that the world is, and you need to learn how to be like that or die, basically. And I think what
I'd
you're
say
saying,
evolve.
it's like, yeah, it's the world is abundant. You are the ocean. Like, you are not
Mhm,
just this glass of water. You are
mhm,
everything. Like, the
mhm,
whole the storm, the rain clouds, all of that is within
mhm,
you.
mhm,
And it's learning how to recognize that. And I think a big part of that is like just checking in and just being like, you know what, I do have shit to be grateful for. Like, maybe I'm not going on my vacation as soon as I want to be, but hey, I got my snacks. I got some good stuff on the radio. I got a car that works. You know,
mhm,
I'm every time I'm in traffic, I always go, at least I have a car. There are so many
mhm,
people who wish they could fucking afford a car, but they're riding the bus. And it's like,
mhm.
why am I upset? Like, I got this cool car with
Yep.
safety features. It has got gas in it. And like, I'm good. I'm gonna be fine, you know?
Uh-huh. Mhm. It's so easy.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know how to bring yourself back to yourself,
Yeah.
not putting your energy into things that you probably cannot affect change in. Like, you can't make the cars just all move. Eventually they will. But who's to say that your feeling of just contentment in that moment doesn't help the flow of the energy in the traffic to start moving? And it's
Mm-hmm.
not saying that you're controlling it, but you're not resisting it.
Yeah.
And that is a power, to be
No-
able to not resist when everyone's like, no, resist, resist. There's this saying I remember that it stuck with me: whatever you resist persists.
Yeah. It's
If you
yeah.
don't feed the fire more air, if you contain the fire, it will eventually go out. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say ignore it, because it does have, it's a powerful force, can be dangerous. But if you're not like putting more wood on it, like say those thoughts that you'd rather not engage with, if you're not like, oh, no, 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 I shouldn't be thinking that. If you're just like, oh, it's like looking at an interesting shaped cloud.
Yeah.
You don't go and try to capture it. You don't go and try to like decipher it and go in with your scalpel and try to figure it out. Maybe if you're a weather person and that's what you're into, but that's a different kind of um curiosity. That's different. You're seeking to understand. So you could take your thoughts and do that too. There's been practices where I'm quite visual, so I'll envision, listening to their thoughts and noticing, like, oh, that sounds a little bit like my young self, not understanding the world and how people can be. And I can sit that little one down on my knee because I've decided to be my own parent in this stage in my life, because I've had wonderful parents that did the best they could. And, I appreciate them both as individuals, but I see them as people more so now. It's not just like, oh, mom and dad, you know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, it took both of them to make me. So within me, it's both. Within me is the DNA of my dad. The flesh of my mother is what I'm dressed in, and her mother before her, and all of those things to help me to remain grounded in the sense of my body without getting caught up in how that can be perceived by others. And to be able to like think of my little self that was seeking understanding. Who better? Who better to understand her now than me? So if I need to reparent something, I could do that, and it's also thinking about like my future self and like what I could possibly become. And I'm looking at what I'm doing today. Does that help me to become somebody I'm proud of? Somebody that I'm like, yeah, that's me right there. That's what I'm putting in every day. Now I'm like, I'm putting in all the spices, all the food in this stew that's gonna be feeding me for the rest of my life. I'm gonna make sure it's got high quality. It's just what I like, and I know that it's gonna only get more flavorful in time.
Mm.
So it's like the inner focus is serious with me. That's why I'm like able to do the things that I do, because I've turned my dial from being out there, what are they doing? What should they be doing? No. I said, okay, what am I doing? What could I be doing? What would I like to be doing? What do I love doing? And
Mm.
not just thinking about that in terms of money, but my life. I gotta live with me for the rest of it. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna make sure I'm in good company. So it's like And that, yeah. Straight up.
If you're gonna be talking to yourself, like at least let the conversation be interesting,
Right. I mean, don't we always, like, in
Yeah.
your mind, you're thinking your thoughts. Who's listening? Right.
Mhm.
And then you might say these things, but who's got to go home and listen to it? And there are times when you're like, oh man, I could have said, I should have said. Forget that. What
Mhm.
did you say? It's like if you were fully present with you in that moment, you would never think, oh man, I could have said something different. No, you would just say what you meant in that moment. You just
Mhm.
say what you felt or say what you thought, truly, because you're not so caught up in what others, how they may react.
Yeah.
And that's another thing with like wealth and things like that. Some of us have that. I know for me, I had to work through this idea of not becoming too successful,
Hmm.
not having
Like
too
being
much
afraid of
money.
your own success.
It's like you don't want to challenge where you've come from in a way.
Mm.
Or let me put it in the eye. I didn't want to challenge the sense of what was available to me at a certain point in my life, what was provided for me and what could be for me. Because, yeah, it didn't quite mesh. How could I, let's say, run a business that's, in the hundreds of thousands? How could I do that without feeling like, oh shit, maybe I should keep this secret or I should kind of hide this because of how people may think they're just going to want money, blah, 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 blah. But here's the thing. I am no longer actually thinking about me. I'm thinking about how others would react, or like saying, okay, like this. Someone's like, yeah, imagine you like got either won $1 million or got like inheritance, right? My mind is like, nowadays my mind's like, ooh, how could I invest that? How can that work for me? What would be good? What is in my neighborhood or community that I can add to? Because in Portland they could use a whole other list of like laundromats. And
Yeah.
I'm not thinking about just buying a place to live in. Like whatever, I can live anywhere in the world that I choose with that kind of like resource behind me. And I'm like, ooh, what can I give? You know, that's
Yeah.
where my mind is now. I asked myself that question a couple of years ago. I was like, ooh, what can I buy? And
Mhm.
now it's like a whole different place of like, ooh, what can I invest in? What can I invest in that will continue to grow over time without me working for it? Because I
Bitcoin.
don't plan
No,
to be there.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, there's
yeah.
also that. Which is why I love this day and age and this time that we're alive in, because we can sit and talk about, philosophically about money. And then we could
Mhm.
also go and engage with it in the ways that we were either taught and modeled for us, which means you go work hard, you save, and then you hopefully buy a piece of property and you'll have that in your family for the rest of your life. Those are yeah, no, they don't work for me.
Yeah.
That model doesn't work for me anymore. Um, yeah, there's this whole big world out there and I want to see it with my eyes. And I like to have the flexibility and fluidity of my time to do it as I please when I please. I'm
Mhm.
not a huge fan of meetings, but I love connecting like this. This is a meeting in a way, thanks Zoom. But also like it's a connection. It's like a conference. It's communion in
Yeah.
a way, because we're communing with one another. There's no I have a point to make and you're gonna listen, then you have a point to make. No, we're just flexing right now and sharing what our experiences are. And to be able to do that, I like to have my time be as fluid as I want to be, and
Mhm.
also feel enriched, not by how much money I made that day, but how much of a difference I could have possibly made in my experience by doing something nourishing, like, or someone else's experience. And yeah, for me, every day I do justice by myself is another day I add to my life. Like I extend my life that way, you know? So it feels really good to be able to like see money in this way, not
Mhm.
as just this thing, but as this like as a ticket to do what I want with my time in the ways that are best suited and satisfying to my soul.
Mm.
Mhm.
So yeah, Yeah, man. Meditation helps. Sometimes listening to really fantastic books like Napoleon Hill, like
Oh
fucking
shit,
dropped
yeah.
some knowledge on me the other day. I was like, dude, yeah, yo. And all of these things are on YouTube, man. You freaking press the button. You can watch a cat video or you can go change your mind. Um, and then like being able to keep certain things that are in like that seeding stage to myself, you know? Because, like I said, we all come from somewhere and we've all got somewhere to go. But sometimes the journey in between is what makes all the difference,
Yeah.
you know, and how
Yeah.
you show up where you're at and then where you want to go. And I know that, yeah, sitting on YouTube just watching like tarot videos was cool for a time because I like being able to tune in to my intuition in a way that feels very physically tangible. But I also realized I wasn't learning. It was just background noise. I was like, nah, I can't do that anymore.
Did
So I
you
was
have
like, all right.
did you have growing up? I mean, you mentioned going to Catholic school. I went to a Christian school, and I
Mm-hmm,
used to love like chapel and singing when I went to my Christian school. But then I went to
mm-hmm,
public school in sixth grade, and like that's when I got told that Jesus wasn't cool, and I really lost touch with specifically just Jesus. And then
mm-hmm.
I got into my own, found my own spiritual path. And then
Yeah,
just recently that I like have now been like, oh wait, there's actually cool stuff about the Christian faith as well. But was there
yeah.
people in your was it your like was any of your parents, or did you have like friends or any relatives that were like guiding you towards like stuff that's spiritual but not necessarily like religious, or
Mm.
anybody that like particularly was influential in like suggesting like books like Napoleon Hill, or it is like I guess it's like philosophy. It's like spiritual philosophy kind of in applied.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual mentors, maybe.
Yeah.
Mm. You know, when I was in Catholic school, I was living in Jamaica, the island of Jamaica, and it's different
Not
there.
Queens, yeah.
No, right, because I got that when I moved here. It's like, oh, where are you from? Jamaica? Jamaica Queens? No. So I had to say that. But yeah, when I was living there, my grandma was very spiritual and she was Christian, so she practiced, she went to church and she did that thing. So every now and again I'd go along with her. This is my grandma on my dad's side. She is passed into spirit and I feel her love every day and deep gratitude for her earth walk. Um, but on my mother's side, where I was living mainly not spiritual in the sense of religion. My mom does read the Bible, so that's my grandma. I think they've been to church with me maybe on holidays when I used to go, because there's something really lovely about being in a space where others are expressing devotion, the singing, the
Hmm.
scripture. Yeah, in my eyes, it would be nice to have a circle to talk about, the reading or whatever that's interactive, where individuals can share their perspective on the same chapter we're reading, but also, yeah, I get the show of like having the guy with his robes and the stage all set. It's a part of it, and I can appreciate that. But no, I didn't at that time. I didn't have anyone really pushing me. Like my grandma on my dad's side was already kind of in her faith, and I saw that, but she never said, "Oh, you need to, and this is how," and yada yada yada. She never actually tried to direct me. She was just living it, and I saw that, and I saw the peace it brought her, and I saw the sense of purpose it gave her. Because she was widowed young, and she had, what was it, like nine children.
Oh no.
Um, so they were busy back
Yeah.
then. No, they didn't have TV, so um, that's my that's my perspective on that. But
I mean, come
gotta
on.
pass the time.
Island life.
So hey, but coming here when I was 14, like, yeah, I dropped all of that. I was like, not about it. Like, forget all that. I don't care. I'm just gonna, like, I really got into like, first of all, acclimating to a new country. And then my faith was kept getting pushed back and back and back. And then what was the fodder here as far as like TV and stuff like that didn't exactly relate to anything deeper than the superficial. So yeah, I didn't realize that I was at odds with it until I came into some suffering in my life, when I was married, and like things were, as they say in like tarot speak, I was having a tower moment. I don't know if you've ever seen that card, but there's like in the Rider-Waite deck, it's really funny because there are two figures like that have been thrown out of a building that's on fire in the back. Half of the top is gone, and like one figure is like ah, and the other one's like okay, we're going down. But one of them is doing it with grace, and the other one is doing it full of fear and trepidation. And I was just like, you don't see how they land, but you see how they're going through it. And I was going through it, but I chose to kind of let myself be caught instead of like trying to figure out or force my way down. So yeah, that really brought me in to myself because the external was just so unfamiliar, um, and very south of what I thought my life could be. Like I felt like I didn't quite recognize myself because I didn't know who I was.
Uh-huh.
And I was living in this place and I was like, so if I go tomorrow, like if tomorrow's my last day on earth, like what are the stories I get to leave behind? You know?
Mm-hmm.
What who am I? And again, this is why I love fantastic writers. It's like even Maya Angelou said, people don't remember what you say or what you do. They remember how you made them feel. And I wasn't at home within myself. So how could I feel at home in a community of full of others and still feeling like, oh, I need to like I want to show up in the world, but I don't know how. So I had to go in and I had to really look. And this tower moment, as painful as it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Mm.
It allowed me, it sent me home to myself.
Mm.
Yeah, there's another saying that's any rejection
It,
is
it kind
God's
of like,
protection, you know,
Oh yeah.
mm.
or God's redirection. Because, yeah, sometimes you're so focused on, no, it's this, I'm going to make this work, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to do it. And I started becoming happy, and the person I was with was like, who are you? I started actually showing up for myself and doing my meditation. Oh, I don't know this person. I don't think I like this person, you know? And
Mhm.
I had to say, oh shit, well, this is me right now. And yeah, that's gonna evolve, but like this feels more like me than I ever was. So therefore I don't think I don't think we're going any further.
Mm.
So, the tower happened, and that was like 7 or 8 years ago.
Wow.
And I am this person now that I absolutely love, I adore, I appreciate because I've been there through it all.
Mm.
I know me like no one else, and I don't know all of me, and that's been like the one of the things I'm most grateful for, because I realized Buddhism was in me without knowing anything about it. Like I remember one time I was in a stressful situation with my mom and my brother and sister, and it's like, oh, how about we just kind of sit down and like breathe for a minute? That was my thought on it because I was ignorant to the practices.
Mm.
But I think I mentioned this with you, Jesse. Like there was my wake up call or awakening moment, as they say. But I just felt like someone turned on the lights and I could see, oh shit, there's a lot in here. All right, let me get to it. Let me start cleaning up my mind,
Yeah.
my life. Yeah, it was a talk by on PBS. Yeah, it was a talk by Deepak Chopra, the future of God, or God 2.0. And in that moment, I realized that I was at odds with God, and I didn't realize. No wonder I was feeling so kind of angry and empty, and like I was spinning my wheels but not going anywhere. And it's not saying that the word God is some figure on a throne in the sky that I bow down to and say, yeah, make things work for me. That's not my sense of God. Um, Yeah, but it's a really fun word. I like it. It's pretty short, sweet, God. Yeah. But
It feels good to use
yeah.
it after like not being able to use it for so long,
Hmm.
or supposedly
Hmm.
not. You know,
Mhm.
Right.
to my own conditioning, I was like, oh, if I say God, people are going to think I'm talking about like the Catholic Church,
Hmm.
and it's
Hmm.
like you don't necessarily mean that. You could be another word for spirit or the ocean or what you were saying
Hmm.
before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's the beauty of words. They have so many meanings, and also knowing who you're talking to helps,
Hmm.
Mhm.
because I feel like both of you have space enough to not stick to the word, but allow the meaning of the word to sink in, which is what it's really about. Um, yeah, and it's like when I look to Eastern philosophies like Buddhism, Hinduism, where this is a line from a song I wrote during that time. It said, Hinduism and Buddhism really spoke to me. It said, look within to see the God alive inside of me.
Mm.
That was the difference that I never felt when I was going to Catholic school, to going to church. Felt like they were telling me a story about someone I should know, but I didn't recognize. Whereas Hinduism has so many stories, and their stories are freaking epic. And
Hmm.
like the balance of characters and the way that women or female embodied
We got
beings are
we got
shown.
Chris coming in. We have another guest on the pirate ship.
Oh,
Oh, Chris is jumping in.
Yeah.
oh snap. Yeah, it was like it really helped to like get a fuller picture of what God could possibly be by looking at the other stories of God, the representations. Even now, I'm looking into the native stories that feel really like nourishing as well. The indigenous stories from different tribes that have walked this plane, and we still have their stories. Like this source, force, business, God, whatever you want to call, it's some stuff, man. And when you look in that direction, like distractions tend to fall away and everything has more meaning. Everything has more juiciness. There's substance to it. And that's been really, really wonderful to have that like kind of happen for me in life, not necessarily be directed. And ever since that talk with Deepak Chopra, man, it's been like a snowball of like stuff that's continued to lead me towards this nameless, shapeless beingness, isness that we call God.
Y-
So
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I
You know,
love Impact. That was like definitely influential to my the beginning of my spiritual journey as well. And I think it's great because he's very readable and accessible too.
Hmm. Hmm.
there's
Yeah.
something that like this is kind of a big realization, or so I don't know. It resonated a lot with me, but it kind of connects to what you were saying earlier about the water or the ocean and the drop and all that stuff. And
Hmm.
so there's like a sort of a Buddhist practice called Dzogchen, and I've been kind of playing with a lot of this stuff. And the practice is sort of like you try to look for your own head or see yourself from the other side. Try to see the thinker. And
Mm.
to explain it simply, you can't see your own head, that you can never fully encapsulate. Like, you find that the identity of you that is behind what you see or whatever is just this empty space. And
Mhm.
when you meditate for long periods of time, you sort of lose the shape of your body. You start to even lose this attachment, identification with your thoughts, and you become just this empty space that has no dimensions to it, where
Mhm.
everything is occurring. And I
Mhm.
remember someone mentioned, they said that is the source of everything in the world. Like, one of the things they say is like, where your head should be, there's just the world. And so
Mm.
when he said source, because I had always heard people, in spiritual circles say like, return to source, or let's go to
Mhm.
source. They use it as a different word because it's not as weighty as God, but
Mhm.
I think they mean it like that. And for some reason that hit me so hard, because it's like, yeah, this empty space of consciousness, of awareness, or
Mhm.
whatever it is the source of everything, of the world that you are experiencing. All of the thoughts, all the people, all the places, like, they're
Mhm.
all just showing up, and they're coming from this space that is you. Like you are the source of all of the things that you are experiencing. And so it's like when you tie into that, it's like you are the drop, but you take a step back, or like maybe it's just, you know, the sensations, the things you're eating, smelling, seeing, that's the drop. But the ocean is this empty space where it all just appears, you know? And yeah, so I don't know, that part kind of really resonated and helped me there to kind of find a different, I don't know, an easier way into identifying it, like, oh, I am God, or God is within me. You know, it helps remove that layer of separation that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Welcome, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Howdy,
Oh yeah,
y'all.
we were just talking about Kanye and, you know, some other, you know, the latest Big
nice.
Brother episode. So
Nice. Yeah, Kanye's probably got some
refresh episode.
Actually, yeah, Kanye's probably deep right now, but
well, how's it going, y'all? How's it going, Juju?
It's going lovely. I'm enjoying myself. How about you, Chris?
I'm enjoying myself. Just had a little bit of tea, took care of some other stuff, and yeah, excited to join the conversation.
Sweet, welcome. Yeah, we oh wow. Yeah, we've been on for a little bit.
We've
completely lost time.
We covered abundance, gratitude, and we've been swapping kind of like little tactics and techniques that we use to I guess just get realigned with the oneness, or I don't know, we've been trying to put a lot of names on the unnameable, if you will. But kind of like the idea of, maybe you can speak to this, Chris, like, do you have any relationship to this thing or this force or this, we've kind of referred to it earlier in the show as the ocean. Like, it's like this ocean of love that can come through and is accessible to you, but there's also a part of our mind that sometimes can feel separate from it.
Unity and duality, right? One and the same. But you know, it's I was listening in just a little bit earlier, and perspective came to mind, right? To be able to see yourself, right? Or like Aaron just said, to be able to see your own head. Sometimes it's hard to do that. Well, there's beauty in unity, and there's beauty in duality, right? And one can be the other. And I think they work together. They fit like right in with each other. So that's really cool. Yeah, I enjoy gratitude. I enjoy gratefulness. Walking outside, breathing the air, just thinking about like where that air is coming from. You know, when I drink water in the morning, like where does this awesome water come from? And it's like, it's in the ocean. It's like the whole ocean, and it's like the whole world, and it's like most of my body, and it's
and it just shows up at your house. It's just there. You don't need to go anywhere. You're like, oh, cool, water.
Yeah, exactly. Falls from the sky.
Water everywhere.
Right. Comes out of the earth too. Yeah. It's incredible. Did you know that the water that we drink is I believe, let's say, 4 to 6% of all water on this planet? And not just the physical humans, like everything that drinks fresh water gets that 4%.
Just very small.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty magical. And that's what we can drink, you know? Yeah.
Resource is beautiful. A little bit can go a long way.
Exactly.
Speaks a little bit to you know, I don't want to use the word exactly greediness, but you know, a little bit goes a long way. So, you know, everyone contributes a little bit. It goes a really, really long way.
This is knowing how precious it is.
Like, my takeaway right now is it's like, it's cool because like I've been thinking like, I've not been doing my yoga practice. I've not been very spiritually fit lately. Like, that's been my opinion of my but then like having this spiritual refresh episode, it's like, you don't have to do yoga to be spiritual. You can drink a glass of water and be spiritual. You can do, it's like, it's very simple to be spiritual is what it sounds like. Go outside. But like, just taking that moment to slow down and be in the moment is really what it is. And I mean, to me, I'm just like, I'm not doing my yoga, so I can't be spiritual.
No, that's the Westerner in you, man. It's all right. It's your training. I can't be mad at that. Neither, I wouldn't suggest you be mad either. But you know the benefit of your practice when you do get on the mat and you do move that asana. Like, yeah, it feeds you in a different way, but it's not who you are and how you show up in spirit. Like, doesn't have to be, there is no idea around it. And that's what we got fed a lot when in our culture. It's like, oh no, it's supposed to look a certain type of way, or it sounds like. How many people do you know speak like this when they're talking about spirituality and they get all breathy and blah 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 blah? And how many people won't say fuck because that is not right and that is not spiritual? Sometimes you need an exclamation point.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to know where things came from before you think you know what they mean now. And also to realize, like, oh, that word means to strike. And sometimes you just want to say, fuck that. Yeah, like strike that off my page. I don't want it. But you got to know where you're coming from. So if you don't get on the mat, you know why. You know, and then you got to live with it. But it doesn't make sense for you to beat yourself up about it and not go do the thing. But if you go do the thing and you're like, oh my God, I'm really in pain, that was not right for me, that's not beneficial either, you know? So it's like finding that sweet spot where you can just be the whoever, whatever you are, in full acceptance of yourself. Not saying, oh, you know, I'm just always late to things. That's how I am. That's who I am. I accept myself. All right, then you won't get invited out. People won't show up for you. And you will also have to accept the consequences of how you choose to show up. So it's like, I know for me, I just started having a daily practice again with the yoga. There are mornings I'm like, fine, let's do the thing. But the minute I'm done with it, I know that I just got something out of it, you know? And there are days when I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do any of that. All right, cool. And I go do something else, but I'm there for it, you know? So, yeah, I feel like the spirituality is about bringing yourself in, bringing yourself fully present for it. Like, whatever it is, all of it. Yeah. And there's something really powerful about just being curious without thinking you know the answers. Just letting them come up and like, oh, that's interesting. Like watching your thoughts, you realize like, oh shit, oh, that's me too. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, it's a wild time being human. It's fun. It's so nuanced. It's so rich with like sensation and possible ways to perceive and observe it and experience, and then to translate into sharing and express through art, through speech, through yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know
That's
if
where
y'all
I'm at.
touched on this before, in this conversation, but just thinking of, the time for spiritual practice, and a lot of the time that can be from a lot of my friends that do many spiritual practices. They'll take time to set aside and do practice by themselves, and and especially even for me, it's a really good way to like be able to focus and quiet as much as possible. It's not really ever quieting anything, and that's everything, and that's good because I want to be aware of what's being said. But I'm sometimes a very busy person, and sometimes there's not enough time for spiritual practice in a day, and I know that that's incorrect. So one of the things that I've been working with is like, when I am in business mode, or when I'm in like, I've got to fix the toilet at the house so it doesn't backflow mode or something like that, and like, okay, how do I work this spiritual practice into right now? How do I set myself? How would my spiritual self conduct itself in the business realm, or in any of it? Thinking about investments and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, capital and resource and what all that means. How do I work spirituality into that part of my life? And that's been a fun practice. It's definitely pretty intense. So I wanted
What are some
to
things?
kind of ask that. Yeah, I'll start with some of my stuff. but definitely we'll pass the torch on after that. Gratefulness, function and purpose. I think the word function resonates well with me there. What is the function of the task that I'm doing? What is the end goal of this? Okay, now in that simple look at, I mean, the task may be 20 hours worth of work in this whole super complicated system of making something happen. But in simplifying that and looking just at what's the goal, how can I conduct myself in a way where my spiritual aspects or the spiritual wants and understandings and things that I want to show in the world, be the light that you want to see, right? So how do I be the light in those situations? So looking at function, I can immediately tie in many different aspects to it. And that's one of the first things that I do.
Function and purpose, it sounds like. Meet
Right.
there. Mm.
Definitely.
And how do you action that? Like, you're at your desk. It's time to like put on your business hat. What happens next? Business hat is on.
Business hat is on. A man of many hats and many names. So one of the first things that I do, I like lists. Lists can be daunting. They have for me at many times of my life. And at the same time, they've been like one of the best saving graces of my life. So in simplifying things, I'll write down function, and then I'll write down the things that I need to meet to fill this function. And one of those points is, how do I do this and I start with the idea of compassion, right? Guan Yin, the bodhisattva of compassion, has showed me a lot with that. So how can I conduct this task with passion? What does that even mean? Is it, if I'm pricing some teaware to sell or some tea to sell, I sell a lot of tea. Do I price it so high that I gain more profit from that? Maybe not. Maybe compassion works for me in the idea of pricing to be able to be more available instead of gaining far more profit. Now there's benefits in all of it. Pricing high might not be such a bad thing if it's worked right. So it's one of those things. I look at, what does compassion mean with this particular task?
Yeah, I like that. And the idea of having a list helps to kind of focus the brain, so your brain is able to, or the mind is able to relax, which is about, like, for me, when I think of incorporating spirituality or spiritual practices into my work, I tend to go to my breath first. Like, if I'm feeling where's my breath? Where is it? Like, is it hanging out of my shoulders? Is it getting to my belly? Like, how am I feeling physically to be able to attend to something with intention and intense focus for a certain amount of time? The list helps. Like, I love having a list, not exactly when I'm about to start tasking, but like, maybe the night before. It's been really good for me to practice. Just getting down things that I know I need to do for the next day. My assistant, aka my phone, she takes most of it and she lets me know what's happening that day. But it's like, when I'm at the desk, and if, like, you're mentioning pricing, like, I sell clothing and designs and body products and things, like, many hats over here, but also, like, I'm also retooling that focus, because I like being able to provide without needing to produce as much on my end. And that's been a creative process in and of itself. To think about, I'm used to making stuff by hand like this. I tie-dye with bleach and it comes out really cool, but it's a very intense process. And I'm like, okay, maybe that is something that I can price high to be compassionate to myself in the sense of how much work it took, knowing the process I've gone through, but also keeping it in a place where it feels accessible to individuals that I know can appreciate the style, the aesthetic, and the feel of it. And that's a way that I would play with adding compassion into it. Because compassion for me is making sure that I'm good so I can give good. Because if I am trying to give good in order to get good, that's a lot of weight being put out as opposed to coming from me naturally, where it's like, oh yeah, I feel abundant, so I know I can be more abundant and share that. And there are times when I've tried to make the list and do the things on the list and it just didn't work because my body wasn't into it. You know, my body was like, oh, I need to move, but I'm not. No, we need to get this done. And it's just like being able to breathe and check in on what my lines of communication are at that moment within myself has been the one of the practices I take with me always. Like when we worked together at Omega, I was in the kitchen department. I was doing prep. There's a lot of things happening around. It's a very intense environment. It's a hot kitchen. There are some hot heads floating about. People just doing things, sharp knives, slippery floors, the whole bit. It's a good time if you like danger. Yeah, so it's just like, okay, I'm here. I can get caught up in the heat. No, I don't want that because I know me. I know how I'm gonna get, you know? And it's like, okay, what's like how can I take care of myself? How can I be present with my body so that my mind can feel relaxed because I'm here. I agreed to be here and I'm gonna be here. And yes, I can sit here and complain all day in my head and like put that into the food and then put that onto the energy, or I can know what it is that I need to take care of. So it's like, okay, make sure I can cool my body. It wasn't, I found a way to do it. It looked very different than others would have thought it to look. It involved long sleeves in the kitchen. So yeah,
Oh wow.
it worked for me. Oh man, I had this long sleeve pullover. I used to put it in the freezer at night. It was kind of wet, and in the morning, shake it out. I've got literally a walking AC. And then because it's a kitchen and I'm working with the sprayers, I know you're gonna get wet. And it was a very scientific process. But essentially, I walked around with my AC on, and people are like, "What the fuck? Is she crazy? Like she's got long sleeves and she's got it like buttoned up to here." It's like, you don't know my tricks. Anyway, I was like, but if you want to know, you'll ask. But you look like you think you know, and you can sit over there with that. I don't have time. Yeah. But then also realizing like I gotta make sure I take my time in here, which meant I can't have my mind racing. So I had to keep coming back to my breath because yeah, man, it was intense. And then realizing how much my calmness of spirit helped to hold the space for others to kind of move through whatever they were going through. But yet the vibe overall felt calmer than I've seen or I've come into in the past. And it's just like being able to have those things set up where it's like, all right, where are my tools? I need to know where they are, make sure they're ready. That's one less thing to think about, which means my mind doesn't have to notify me and keep telling me and keep pushing me and keep moving me. I can move from a place of centeredness, from like, okay, my belly's full, I had breakfast, cool. I know my mind is gonna think whatever it's gonna think. But yeah, I'm here, I'm cutting this carrot. Yep, I got a whole bag of carrots to cut. I know. Look at this carrot. Wow, look at the shape in here. Oh my God, it's amazing. Instead of thinking about I've got 50 pounds of carrots to peel, cut, get processed to be able to put into a salad. I could do that. That I didn't have to. But yeah, the carrots got cut. Everything got prepared. And I was able to maintain my peace because I was just checking in with my breath. And yeah, that helps tremendously for me. Yeah. Yeah. I think I survived, man. And now I'm happily independent of those things. So yeah. But yeah, I'm forever grateful for the experience because Jesse, had you worked in the kitchen before?
Yes. Yeah, I've worked in that kitchen. Yeah, it's no joke. especially midsummer if you're on a hot line in the middle of the summer in upstate New York. Geez, Jesus.
Yeah. Hmm.
But that place is cool. I feel like I did some karmic yoga there, so maybe I have like a couple less lifetimes from a couple like a season and a half in that kitchen.
Oh yeah, you've got several boons on the way, my friend.
Yeah.
You've earned them. Oh man.
Yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for like coming on the ship, and
Oh yeah.
it's just been nice. Like I think it's like it's nice to regularly check in with like-minded folks and just be like talk about our spiritual practice and like just be reminders, be the mirrors for each other. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
a lot of the things that you're saying, it's just like, oh yeah, totally get it. Just like hearing it come from you, it's like at least it's not coming from my own head. Do you know what I mean? It's like because then
Mm-hmm.
it can get like repetitive or sound crazy sometimes. But then you have your friends or your like-minded people in your community saying a lot of the same things, and it's like, okay, all
Mm-hmm.
right, it's nice to hear it from them. It's nice to hear the same thing from a different person or a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me that it's like that's true. Like she's saying
Yeah.
all the way out there today, and it's feeling true right here now. It's got to be
Hmm. Hmm. And we all know truth by how we feel with it. It's
right.
not about rationalizing it or trying to make sense of it. It's like,
Right.
oh yeah, yeah, I feel that. I get that. Yeah, that's true for me. Yeah, man.
Yeah, and you definitely have a poetry about how you express it, which is really refreshing. So yeah, thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
appreciate that.
I kind of want to know, so like, as we start wrapping it up here, like what's going on? What do you want to like highlight that you've been doing? Like, what are you excited about? What you're working on these days? What can
Mm.
we like share with the listeners and all that?
Well, whoever is on the Instagram, follow me. I love JuJu Arts because that's going to be updated soon with my last photo shoot with some of the designs that I'm doing. And you should be able to see bags. This is one of my designs.
Oh, badass.
Yeah, this was a
Nice.
painting that now is wearable art. It's a tote bag. That's basically my go-to bag. Yeah, so that's what I've been working on, and I am writing actually. So you said the poetic expression that I have. It's yeah, it's natural. I can't help it. It's the way I express, and there should be a book of poetry coming soon. And I'm thinking possibly to expand the affirmation cards. So, yeah, you weren't here, Chris, so you get to pull a card. Let me
Oh
Ooh.
yeah.
All right.
let me get you for 1, 2, or 3. Hold on. Oh, guys, you want to do it again?
Yeah, let's do it again.
Sure.
Okay, this time I don't pull a card for me, but yeah. All right, let me get them out. This 1, 2. Oh, yep. 3. Okay. So,
We'll let Chris go first, maybe.
okay.
All
What do you
righty.
say?
How do I do this one?
All right, just close your eyes, take a breath, relax, and just let your mind know which card to pull 1, 2, or 3. And whatever
Mm.
feels right, first thing,
2.
1. Cool. Got it. Guys, Jesse, Aaron,
You go,
is
Aaron.
that ready?
I'll go 1.
Okay. Are you going to round it out, Jesse?
That makes
No.
two. Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah.
He wants 1 too. Yeah.
You want 1 too?
No. I want to. I want to hear all of them. I guess that's why I'm choosing the second.
Okay. Okay, so for card 2, Chris, it says, let life love you like the creator intended. Legacy takes time, empires take work. So it's about being open and letting life in to love you in ways that you can't imagine, but yet fit you in ways that you also can't imagine. It's like that surprising, like, oh, I like this. Yeah. Like that, like letting life love you like your creator intended. And knowing that the work you're doing is important and legacies take time, empires take work. Both of them require your full participation. So you got to show up and yeah, but open. So life can work with you in building that empire and having a legacy that lives on. So yeah, that's card 2.
The shit.
All right. Oh, so number 1 says continuum, which I'm going to show you the image.
I love it.
Cool.
And it can be very short and sweet. It can be.
Can be.
What do you want that you think might not be possible, or that you think has like so many things, so many steps before you can get it or get to it or enjoy it? Whatever those steps, don't worry about them so much. Just know that it can be. So whatever that is. Yeah, it's a part of the continuum. It's a part of the cycle, and it's possible. Not just possible, it can be. So that means it's very likely. Yeah.
Shit, I need to hear that.
All right, and for Jesse, rounding it out with number 3, in time, it will all make sense. You can and will make it through this. Dang. In time, it will all make sense. You can and will make it through this. You got what it takes. That's why you're going through it. And we grow through what we go through, my friend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And in time, it all makes sense. That's the best part about time, you know?
Yeah.
When you're in a moment, time doesn't actually matter. You don't realize it. That's why a couple hours later, here we are, because we were so in it. But when you reflect on it, you can see just how much value or how much the time actually meant to you. And that's not something that can be measured by a clock, but it's about, showing up and being there, being present. Yeah, it always makes sense. They say hindsight is 20/20, right?
Yep.
So, and that's it for me. But yeah, follow me on Instagram. I'd love to see you there. Another page that I have is Journey with JuJu 222. Just a little bit of stuff going on. Some things I think. I'll put that out there. Whatever. But yeah, this is amazing, guys. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah, I'd love to
Absolutely. This
check
was
back
awesome.
in.
This was
Yeah.
awesome. It was so great for you to show up and bring your magic and I don't know, just connect and make everybody sweet.
Yeah, anytime, man. Just let me know. I'd love to board the ship again.
You're welcome
Yes.
anytime.
We'll have to
Thanks,
get you back for season 2.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Let's see what's happening then.
It's true. We'll have to
some
call you in
cliffhangers
for our
soon.
like spiritual crises episodes.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Wonderful.
hey,
I love this one.
I've got the
Yes.
buckets. I'm coming through. I got the water. Let's do the thing. Well, blessings to all of you. And Chris, thanks for jumping in and like sharing that process of like, marrying your spirituality with the work and how it really helps to support it being actually beneficial overall for everyone, not just you when you're in the process, but the people that are going to receive what you're putting out into the world. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Hi.
This is awesome.
Thank you. And very nice to meet you. And I hope to meet you in person soon.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Oh man, when we're going live, that's
Thanks everybody.
that's some real deal stuff.
All right, I'm just